So yeah, the Warriors are super confusing. We all know their home road situation at this point, right? 27-7 at home, 7-26 on the road. When Steph was out recently, they went on a 5-game winning streak. That was also during a homestand. Steph comes back. They've now lost 3 in a row, all 3 of those on the road. They have not had Wiggins for a bit as he's dealing with a personal issue off the court. Obviously, we hope he's doing all right. I do want to focus on the defense for a bit because last season they were elite defensively. This season, not so much. And it's really wild, man, because you have these games where they look amazing. You know, like during their recent win streak without Steph, they had so many great defensive performances. I mean, hell, their second half against the Pelicans was kind of amazing. You know, they had a number of plays where they would double team Ingram as he had started his drive, or maybe he was in the post or whatever, and then you would have, like, let's say Kuminga closing out to CJ after Ingram kicks it out to him, and there'd be plays where, like, Draymond is playing off of Herb Jones, and he'll get a great straight-up contest on somebody, or he'll force a pass out to, like, Kyra Lewis. There was another one where they sort of swarmed on Ingram, and then DiVincenzo comes out of nowhere to steal a pass that's meant for, I think it was Najee Marshall underneath the basket, and they're going the other way. In the Clippers game, DiVincenzo had plays where he's like fighting around screens to where PG can't just get a head of steam towards the basket. He's throwing it out to Eric Gordon, and then that's a good closeout on that 3. Like, there's moments where their defense is legitimately great. I mean, in their recent Blazers game, they're like double teaming Dame, and then that just kind of halted the Blazers offense in the second half a lot. They were busting out a zone that confused the hell out of the Blazers. One play I remember where Draymond hedged on a Dame screen, and then he goes full sprint to the basket to then contest Thibault at the rim because he was left open a little bit. I mean, Clay, DiVincenzo, Draymond, Looney, Kuminga, like they really were putting in some like great stuff defensively throughout that streak. And then you have last night against the Grizzlies where they give up 1,000,000 points in the first quarter, and it's like, you know, Clay is fronting Xavier Tillman in the post, and then Tillman just kind of cuts, and that's an easy layup. A couple plays where I felt like Tyus Jones kind of picked him apart because they were playing aggressively out of the corner, and the closeout to the corner was like okay, but not amazing. There were plays I remember like Jordan Poole was playing off of Luke Kennard a little too hard early in a possession. Giddey had like 17 assists on him in their recent OKC loss, where there were a few plays where you've got like DiVincenzo helping pretty aggressively off of Isaiah Joe. One play which for some reason stuck with me where Giddey takes Steph baseline, Draymond helps, and then Giddey's kind of stuck there. And then Jalen Williams, the bigger one, gets a pretty easy cut to the basket. And that's just the type of thing that we know when the Warriors are at 100% defensively and the communication and all that is there. It just doesn't happen very often. SGA also went off in that game. And I mean, sure, there's going to be the ones where he's like making a jumper over Kuminga. And okay, you say we did our best there. But there were others where like he would get by somebody on an in-and-out dribble, and then the help was like really, really late or barely there at all, and it's just like, this just doesn't look right. In the Laker game, like AD definitely made some tough shots. I guess if you wanted to have a complaint, you could say, well, you could have played more aggressively on AD, brought double teams, the whole thing. To give him a break, that game was a little weird because I felt like Steph, Clay, and Jordan Poole all missed relatively open shots that they typically make, although they also had a really tough time getting to the rim. I don't know, man, it's just kind of weird. I will say this, I think when Draymond and Looney are out there together, it looks the best defensively, partially because that's about the biggest they can get, and DiVincenzo and Kuminga's efforts as well are definitely good, and, you know, Clay, I think it's having more moments. Like, there were moments, like, in that recent Pelicans game where, like, Clay was holding up pretty well on CJ and stuff. To talk about Jordan Poole's defense, yeah, he's got to be better, and the worst parts are, like, he'll fall asleep on a random backdoor cut, or he won't go as hard around a screen as he really could, or he'll have sort of like a flail of a closeout as opposed to like a full sprint one where he understands the rotation beforehand, you know, which I guess can segue into the offense, and perhaps we can start with Poole. So Poole for the season's averaging about 20 points on 56 true shooting, which would look pretty okay if you were just to look at the numbers. However, it's been very up and down for him. You know, his last game against the Grizzlies, it was good. The thing with Poole is the dude loves his jump shots, whether they're pull-ups or occasionally step-backs or just shooting a quick one around a screen or within the flow of the Warriors offense, you know, coming around something off ball and immediately shooting it. And when it's going in, it's awesome. When it's not going in, it's frustrating. The other thing with Poole is he is very fast with the ball, and he's really shifty. And so you would think, are there more opportunities for him to get downhill? And there's times where he gets a screen from Draymond or Looney or a handoff from those guys, and he can make something happen to the basket, and it looks good. But it's not all the time. Like sometimes I think he drives into traffic a little too much. Sometimes he pulls off these really slick passes or a nice bounce pass to Looney on the dive, and other times he's just a little slow to see the open dude. Like, he's had an up and down season, even so, he still can get buckets on any given night, you know? Speaking of buckets, you know, Clay has been getting them through the normal Clay ways, but also during that run where Steph was not playing, like, Clay was handling on ball a little bit more, and, you know, he had some big fourth quarter buckets where he had to go ISO, and he's getting into like his pull-up two-pointer and all that, or turnaround jumpers. If I remember, like late in the Wolves game, he had this one ISO over Kyle Anderson. He also had this insane bank shot deep two-pointer on the baseline where I was like, what the hell was that? And the Pelicans one, I remember he took CJ ISO for a big one late. He had some Eubanks switches where he attacked him in the Blazers one. He's looked good. I don't know if you can have a lot of complaints about Clay right now. Draymond has at least looked to find more pockets where he can dive to the rim or do like those fake handoffs and then have a drive to the basket or so, to where he's not just scoring like 4 points every game, you know? On top of course, his passing and all that. Kuminga, like I said in that revisiting the draft video like 2 weeks ago, whatever, he's always looking for opportunities to cut. I really like when he screens for guards and he's able to get downhill that way. I think there's pretty much every sign that Kuminga has star potential, and if he was on a different team, he'd be averaging more points, but he'll probably end up being a better player through the Warriors. And defensively, I think he's been showing a lot of signs. And DiVincenzo, I mean, he's mostly been fitting in pretty well with the Warriors offense. I mean, whether it be like little swing passes just to get to the next guy, or being just good enough off the dribble to where if there's an opportunity there after he's coming around like a down screen or whatever, he can attack. Like, there are still good signs here. Also, DiVincenzo grabs rebounds kind of like a madman, where it'll be like, there was one against one of the games where like he grabs an offensive rebound, throws it to Kuminga for a dunk. It was like a big play and a comeback that they had. There's things to feel good about. But overall, yeah, they've just been a very confusing team, and we'll see how the standings play out for them. Right now, they're tied for the 6th seed with the Wolves and the Mavericks.